Welcome to part 2 of watching The Defectives, where I, Barrett Holmes, take a little look at the ex-Tory defective defectors who have shed any remaining shred of decency that they might have had and defected to Nigel Farage's political company Deform, UK plc. I mentioned in part 1 that December of 2025 had been unusually cold for the Tory leader Gaff Girl, aka Kemi Bad Enoch. The next 3 defectives all deserted the sinking Tory ship for that alluring stale aroma of Farage's cigarettes and beer. Thursday, December the 4th, 2025 was the day that Leonitsi Townsend became our next failed ex-Tory to jump into the deformed Tory recycling bin. Here are some of her highlights. Became the MP for Great Grimsby in 2019, before losing her seat in 2024. She served as an assistant government whip in the Truss Lettuce government from September to October 2022. Nisi was the MP for Great Grimsby from 2019 until losing her seat in 2024. Let's take a look at some of her political highlights. In March 2020, Nitsi became a member of the Backbench Business Committee in the House of Commons. In May 2020, Nitsi supported Spaffer Johnson's refusal to take action against his chief advisor Demonic Scummings after the latter breached COVID-19 regulations. Because, well, he was only doing a 200-mile round trip to Specsavers to get his eyes tested. Absolutely nothing unusual in that, according to Leonitsi. In August 2020, Nitsi was one of 25 Tory MPs and peers to sign a letter to the then Home Secretary, the Pritla Patel, urging stronger enforcement against the small boat crossings, considering it to be strikingly clear that, rather than a hostile environment, invading migrants have been welcomed. More immigrant-bashing bandwagon jumping by Nitsi. In October 2020, Nitsi was appointed a parliamentary private secretary in the Department for Digital, Culture, Media and Sport. Cheese sniffer Oliver Dowden would follow her. Then Nads, aka Dossadores, would later take over that role. In March 2021, Nisi joined the Flag Shaggers and used Twitter to say the flag and the Queen are big parts of life in this country. Of course, if people are not proud to be British, or of our flag or Queen, they don't have to live in the UK. Perhaps they should move to another country they prefer. Much criticism followed, but she refused to apologise for her comments. In September 2021, put on her tinfoil hat, and, in an interview with YouTuber Mahayatusi, Nitsi expressed her belief that there are some very sinister, extreme left-wing things going on in our country, and they're trying to lobby government and companies. In December 2021, amid the Westminster Partygate controversy, Nitsi maintained that Spaffer's moral authority had not been lost, and expressed her displeasure at the whistleblowers, saying that they should be ashamed. After Spaffer admitted that he had attended a Downing Street garden party during the UK's first national lockdown, Nitsi also defended him, stating that nobody is perfect, claiming that it was the Blob and those who did not like that her hero Spaffer had taken the UK out of the EU, that they were all plotting against him. When not just believing in conspiracy theories, Nitsi liked to help fan them. In February 2022, Nitsi defended the Spaffer after his false claim that Keir Starmer was responsible for the failure of the CPS to prosecute Jimmy. So vile, alleging that the purported link between the two was the #1 issue for local people on social media in the week before Spaffer raised it in his response to the Sue Gray investigation into lockdown parties within government. The following week, Nitsi was appointed as a parliamentary private secretary to the Prime Minister, No back scratching going on there then. Does ALLSharts, I mean Leah Nietzsche, have the qualities required to be a member of Deformed? She does tick all the boxes and is horrible enough. Chris Green, who was first elected as MP for Bolton West in 2015 and was re-elected in 2017 and 2019, but was soundly spanked in the 2024 general election by Labour MP Phil Bricknell. He was concerned about the focus on abolishing stamp duty. So a bad speech from Kemi Badenoch was the reason that Mr. Nobody decided to leave the Tory party. Okay. When asked if he hadn't lost his seat, would he still have continued as Tory MP? Mr. Nobody Green insisted that he had already made his mind up after Kemi's bad speech, in his mind anyway, at the Tory conference, and added this, though Ms. Badenoch's speech was impressive in some ways and included decent content, he was concerned about the focus on abolishing stamp duty. He said, "This is a policy clearly focused on the South East. Only the wealthiest benefit. Whereas I want to hear a policy focusing on the needs of the people of Bolton." Mr. Green said that although he agreed on leaving the European Convention on Human Rights, he was concerned that this would depend on it having to be a manifesto commitment. Mr. Chris Nobody Green has had a pretty boring and unremarkable career. One of his very few highlights, which happened more by accident and forgetfulness, happened in February of 2025, when Manchester Central MP Lucy Powell accused him of continuing to parade around as a Tory MP, because after more than 7 months after losing his seat, signs at the office still display Chris Green, Member of Parliament for Bolton West, alongside 2 portcullis House of Commons logos. Mr. Green is not a very notable defective defector, and there is really not much more to add. Will he make the ideal Deformed Party member? Probably, as nobody will notice he's even there. The 1st of December 20 foresaw 2 more failed Tory defective defections. Here is the better known of the 2. 1 Mr. Jonathan C. Gullis.
Absolutely not a cat and a chance will I be defecting. I joined the Conservative Party at 18 years old. Absolutely not a cat and a chance.
C. Gullis got this nickname, among others, because he is very much like a seagull. He struts around, makes a lot of noise, and will nick your chips, then shits on your head. C. Gullis was known for being very loud and abrasive during PMQs, with some political commentators calling him the House of Parliament hooligan, for his football hooligan-like attitude. Here is a small selection of his many highlights, for want of a better word, to describe them. C. Gullis stained the teaching profession, having been a teacher from 2012 until 2019. He compared his teaching experiences to boxing. He worked in schools, including the Blackfen School for Girls, a 2012 to 2015, Ashlawn School, a 2015 to 2016, Greenwood Academy, 2016 to 2018, and Fairfax Academy, a 2018 to 2019. Gullis described his classroom personality as a mixture of Spafford Johnson and Jacob Greasy Smug, and said that he liked to play the character of an English gent. Good luck with that. Gullis says that he was nicknamed Grumpy Gullis because I never smiled. Something's never changed then. Upon being elected to Parliament, Gullis left work at Fairfax Academy, and he described the pupils he was responsible for as their head of year as probably happy to see me go. No, surely not. He's such a likeable chap. He went on to be elected as a Conservative councillor in the Shipston ward of Stratford-upon-Avon in May 2011 and resigned in October of 2012, starting another teaching job in London. Gullis thought that he would try his hand at Westminster politics and stood in Washington and Sunderland West at the 2017 general election, but lost to incumbent Labour MP Sharon Hodgson. Gullis became one of the infamous Spafford-Johnson 2019 intake of MPs after finally winning his seat and being elected as the MP for Stoke-on-Trent North on the 12th of December of the aforementioned year, becoming the first Tory MP to represent the constituency. What lucky people. C. Gullis was still employed as a teacher and the head of year at the Fairfax Academy and was the school's trade union representative. Moving along on the 30th of April 2020, Gullis was criticised by Piers Morgan after he complained of the media's sick obsession with the number of deaths during the pandemic. In a tweet, he was responding to a tweet by radio presenter James O'Brien. Gullis described comparisons with the number of deaths in other countries as lazy. In this now deleted tweet, he later apologised for his poor choice of words. He later closed his Twitter account but reopened it in November 2023. He is such a caring, compassionate person, maybe when he is asleep, along with being a flaccid member of those swashbuckling Brexiteers known as the ERG in November 2020, following an interim report on the connections between colonialism and properties now in the care of the National Trust, having links with historic slavery. Gullis was among the signatories of a letter to the belly laugh from the Common Sense group of Conservative MPs. Surely this has to be a massive oxymoron. The letter accused the National Trust of being coloured by cultural Marxist dogma, colloquially known as the woke agenda. The term woke, which none of the members of this so-called Common Sense group can even define. On the 23rd of February 2021, Gullis was prevented by the Deputy Speaker from taking part in a debate in the House of Commons from his home for being inappropriately dressed. Gullis changed into a suit and was then allowed to participate. What a horrible image that conjures up. Gullis, get your pants on, nobody wants to see that, and no thanks, I roll my own, are phrases that come to mind. In October 2021, Gullis suggested at a fringe meeting during the Conservative Party conference that people using the term white privilege should be reported to the Home Office as extremists, and Gullis has described Black Lives Matter as a Marxist organisation that wants to abolish the nuclear family and defund the police. In May of 2022, he resigned as Parliamentary Private Secretary to the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland on the 5th of July 2022 in the aftermath of the Chris Pincher scandal, and called on Spafford-Johnson to resign as Prime Minister, and then went on to endorse Dim Lizzie Lettis-Truss, who appointed him as the Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State for School Standards. In October of that year, C. Gullis was sacked by Fishy Rishi, so knackered and wound up, seething with smoke coming out of his ears on the backbenches. Towards the latter part of his not very esteemed career, on the 26th of March 2024, Gullis and Angela Richardson were made deputy party chairs of the Tory party. In April of 2024, the C. Gullis accepted a £10,000 donation from JCB, the newspaper. The Berlin Times links this payment to Gullis's silence on JCB closing a facility entailing 200 job losses in his constituency, and contrasts it with his activity on the announcement of a facility closure by Johnson Tiles. In the 2024 general election, Gullis lost his Stoke-on-Trent North seat to Labour candidate David Williams. This was a sad time for the C. Gullis. In October 2024, Gullis told the BBC that he had been unable to find permanent employment since losing his seat in July, stating that he believed this was related to his political views.
Is there a problem in the teaching profession, that it specifically goes against you in the teaching profession, that you're a Conservative
I'll
MP?
be perfectly frank with you. When I entered teaching, it was always slightly more centre-left leaning, but I always felt that it was fair. When I left the profession to enter Parliament, I felt if being a Conservative was something that was treated with disdain, and I do think there's a lot of schools that will see who I used to be, represent, and maybe my views, which they may not like, and because of that, not because of what I can do as a teacher, but because of that, I won't even be given an interview. And I think that's a damning indictment on the profession that I do love and do care about. But sadly, if you're going to have too many activists in the classroom, which I do think we have at this time, then politics is going to sadly determine who's allowed to work in that profession, which is not good for pupils, it's not good for parents, but particularly pupils, because they need teachers to be coming to deliver high quality education, not pursuing the very rapid woke agenda that sadly has entrenched many of our education sectors.
The memes then followed, showing our down and out Gullis outside a job centre, sat on the street with a sign saying 10p for a cuppa, and holding up a sign saying Gidza job, perhaps our C. Gullis has now secured his future, as he is the ideal deformed party man. If you would like more of my diligent sleuthing into these repulsive reprobates that are jumping into the failed X Tory recycling bin, calling itself deformed, then follow these instructions. You can stroke them, caress them, tickle them, or even press them. It's entirely up to you what you do with the like and subscribble buttons in the privacy of your own home. Just do it.